My name is Lauren Collins. Ever since I was a young child, I have been an outsider in my family. I didn't quite fit into the perfect family photo, which was taken with my parents, Edward and Janet, brother Kevin, and sister Madison. A white wooden fence surrounded our typical two-story home in the New England suburbs. On the surface, we might have seemed like the perfect family, but the reality was quite different. I was 6 years old on Christmas morning when it all began. Kevin received the newest gaming console, and Madison received an expensive playhouse. In the meantime, I was overjoyed to receive an encyclopedia. An encyclopedia? That's not exactly innocent. You're really weird. My mother looked at me and said, rather casually, I wonder who you take after. I can still clearly remember the pain that surged through my chest at that exact moment. The pain was unbearable. However, only my grandparents knew who I was. They would secretly give me special books and boast about my scientific achievements. My grandma used to murmur, Lauren, you have a unique talent. Someday, the world will understand that. She then handed me a lovely arithmetic book. Her words, this is our secret. The day before my 13th birthday was one memorable occasion. At a school science fair, I had taken first place. I had been looking for a new way to more effectively gather solar energy for weeks. I was hailed by the judges as a bright young scientist. My mother gave me a chilly stare as I excitedly came home. Madison's dancing performance is tomorrow, and I'm working hard to get ready. She responded, you'll have to assist around the house. My dad was just as unconcerned. That's nice, he remarked, keeping his gaze fixed on the newscast. My parents went to Madison's dance performance the following day, forgetting my birthday. My grandparents came to me after learning. With regret, my grandma added, I'm sorry we couldn't come earlier. My grandfather got me a sketchbook and a set of high-quality pencils, and they took me out to a lovely meal. A bright mind like yours needs a creative outlet, he stated. My folks were upset when we got home. Why did you take Lauren out? My grandma was approached by my mom. Lauren had chores to do at home. She made an effort to fight, but in front of my parents, she was helpless. My mother answered sharply, this isn't your problem, Mom, though. My grandparents have since been more circumspect in their defense of me. My father entered my room while I was doing college applications during my senior year of high school. When he saw my MIT application, he scowled. When he said, be realistic, Lauren, you shouldn't attend such colleges. Instead, think about the nearby community college. Despite my mute assent, I secretly objected to what he had said. A few weeks later, MIT sent me an admission letter and offered me a full scholarship. My mother was shocked when I told my family, and my father said icily, well, you're lucky. Kevin chuckled. No one would believe you could get into such a university. I cried in my room that night and made a promise to myself that I would succeed and prove myself. During my 4 years of college, I hardly ever had holidays at home. Rather, I devoted the most of my time to exploring my future at the university library. I tried my best to avoid contact with my parents and siblings. I only went to family get-togethers once every few years at my grandparents' behest. I began working as an entry-level programmer at a large software business after I graduated. I made the decision to launch my own company when I was 25. It was a startup that specialized in security systems driven by AI. I used my meager money to launch the business in an inexpensively leased garage. I spent several sleepless hours developing an image recognition system that performed 30% better than industry norms. A well-known Silicon Valley investor hailed this finding as groundbreaking when it was published in a tech journal and gave me $5 million in initial money. After that, my business started to get interest from the sector. Major banks and government organizations accepted my technology, and I expanded my workforce to 150 people. I was named one of the top entrepreneurs under 30 by Forbes magazine. I revealed yet another breakthrough the week before my 29th birthday. It was a novel security system that integrated AI and blockchain. It has been demonstrated to stop 99.8% of data breaches. 5 significant tech businesses made purchase proposals to me a week after the news. I ultimately consented to sell my business for an incredible $850 million to a multinational behemoth. Kevin called me 2 weeks after my family found out about my accomplishment. "Hey, Lauren, that's incredible." His tone had softened abruptly. "I'm in a little problem, frankly. Having trouble paying back the auto loan." I was going to say no at first. However, I secretly still had a desire for their acceptance. Surely they would see my value if I assisted them. I had longed to be accepted as a real part of the family, not a freak. I reasoned that spending money may help close that gap. To be honest, I wanted to demonstrate my accomplishments. I wanted to prove to my family, who used to despise me, that I was now prosperous enough to support them. I sent him $5,000 in the end. A reimbursement guarantee was made, but it was never fulfilled. Madison came next. She said that they were on the verge of losing their home because her husband had failed in his business. She requested $30,000 for short-term assistance. I sent the money out of benevolence. Once more. I can't even begin to describe how disappointed I was to see their pictures from a vacation to Europe on social media months later. My parents were no different. They were modest at beginning. However, their little requests gradually added up. My mother needed cosmetic surgery. My father needed a new automobile, and their house needed improvements. There was no end to the list. Every time I complied with their requests, I received just token expressions of gratitude. I lent my family more over $150,000 in a single year. Every time we spoke, we ended ourselves talking about what else they desired. They seldom ever inquired about my life or emotions. Instead of recognizing my accomplishment, they decided to take advantage of it. When I realized this, I stopped answering their demands and grew more and more averse to family get-togethers. But one Thanksgiving evening, everything was different. First, there was a phone call. My granny was the one. "Please, Lauren, I would like you to join us this Thanksgiving. Grand Plaza is where we're all eating supper." She spoke in a weak but resolute voice. "Without you, the family isn't complete." Her statement resonated with me, and I concurred. "Come on, grandmother. I'll come get you." I went to Grand Plaza in my best black suit on Thanksgiving. I felt more confident when I donned this outfit on the day of my first significant event. That night, I needed it. My family was already sitting at a huge table when I walked into the restaurant. Like a scene from a movie, my parents, grandparents, Kevin, Madison, her husband Brian, and the children were all laughing and chatting. "Lauren," Kevin yelled. I could feel the coldness in his gaze, yet his grin appeared lovely. He got up and gestured toward a vacant chair at the end of the table. "A long time has passed. Come have a seat here." Kevin said something as I walked up to the designated seat. I apologized. He pointed to a place a little distant from the table and joked, "This seat is for family. Slaves eat in the toilet." Around the table, there were giggles. My father's and mother's grins were controlled. Only the looks of my grandparents grew gloomy. "How long do you intend to keep making such childish jokes?" I asked, trying not to become upset. I then requested that a waiter bring another chair next to the table. I considered leaving, but I viewed it as the ideal chance. There, I made the decision to make peace with my family. As the lunch continued, Kevin snatched up the bill and pushed it in front of me. I was surprised. I was astounded by the $4,387 bill when I first saw it. I was unable to speak. "Oh, Lauren, don't worry about it," Kevin said. "It's a trivial amount for you, isn't it?" The faces around the table were expectant. They thought I would cover the cost. "Did you have this plan?" I felt a wave of anger. "To invite me only to demand payment?" "What are you talking about, Lauren?" My mom passed out from bewilderment. "This is a family gathering." "Yes, a family gathering," I muttered. "But have you ever treated me as part of the family?" There was silence at the table. "You've achieved success." At last, my father replied, "You ought to tell a little. We're family, right?" Something inside of me was broken by those remarks. Family. My voice faltered. Ever since I was a kid, you have treated me like a freak. Instead of applauding my accomplishment, you have become envious. And you're grabbing my money once again now. Is this the definition of family? Kevin laughed and remarked, "Don't exaggerate, Lauren. It's just a dinner bill." "Just a bill for dinner?" Kevin, $4,388. I thrust the bill in his direction. "Pay it yourself." "You're joking, right?" His face flushed as he said, "We all ordered thinking you would pay. That's the problem." I got to my feet. "You've always made fun of me, and now that I'm successful, all you care about is using me. However, it is now over." I grabbed my phone out of my backpack and looked through my contacts to find Wayne. He was one of the top attorneys in New York and my partner. "Lauren," he spoke over the telephone. "What's going on?" "Wayne, I'm sorry to bother you, but can you come to Grand Plaza?" I said, "There's a legal issue here only you can resolve." "Without delay," he said. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. The air around the table was tense when I hung up. "Did you call a lawyer?" Madison questioned incredulously. "Yes," I said coolly. "This seems like an effort at deception to me. You made an attempt to trick me into paying a hefty amount. I'll have my attorney look into this." "Wait a minute, Lauren," my mother begged, her concern evident. "This is an issue within the family. Outsiders don't need to get involved." I said, "It's too late now. You've been making fun of me for a while now. Tonight is the last day of it." Wayne Jackson came into the diner 10 minutes later. Wearing a sophisticated gray suit, he exuded confidence that befitted his judicial background. There was an air of dignity about him. "Lauren." He came over and kissed me lightly. "What's happening?" I gave a quick explanation of the circumstances. Wayne scowled as he examined the bill. "This is clearly premeditated," he stated in a formal manner. "Inviting you here and then, without prior agreement, expecting you to cover an expensive bill is problematic." "You're joking, right?" Kevin got to his feet. "This supper is only for the family. There isn't an issue." "And you are." Wayne faced him. "Collins. Kevin Collins." Wayne said, "Well, Mr. Collins, this can be seen as an intentional attempt to impose an unfair financial burden on Lauren, in a composed yet forceful tone, especially since you initially insulted her and then expected her to pay." Insult. My dad yelled. "What are you talking about, sir?" Wayne faced him. "The fact that Kevin initially used the term slave towards Lauren is a clear insult." Around the table, there was silence. "Let's settle this easily," Wayne went on. "Everyone pays for their own orders, and this issue is resolved." "That's ridiculous," Kevin yelled. "We can't afford such amounts." "Then why did you order them?" Calmly, Wayne asked. "Was it not because you assumed Lauren would cover the costs?" There was silence at the table. "Please understand," said Wayne. "This supper isn't only for the family. It seems like a calculated attempt to take advantage of Lauren. We could have to file a lawsuit if you don't pay." I've heard my mother say, "Wait, wait," too quickly. There is a miscommunication. All we wanted was to eat with Lauren. "Then why did you call her slave?" Wayne pushed. "Why did you order expensive menu items without her consent?" "Wayne, that's enough." My hand touched his arm. "Now it's obvious. I am not considered family by them. I'm just an ATM to them." My grandma abruptly slapped her fist down on the table. "That's enough," she said, her voice full of rage. "As the eldest in this family, I will not tolerate such behavior." She gave my mom and siblings a fierce look. "Lauren has had terrible treatment from you. Ever since she was a young girl, you have denigrated her. You want to ride on her coattails now that she's successful." "Grandma." When Kevin attempted to object, she stopped him with a raised hand. She stated, "I'm not finished. You ought to have treated your daughter with fair love and support, Edward and Janet. However, you have consistently alienated Lauren, and now you've all planned this shameful plan." My father attempted to counter, "Mom, that's not true," but she disregarded him. "Lauren," she said, turning to face me, "you've become into a powerful lady. You have my admiration. I also understand if you decide to keep your distance from this family." Her remarks struck a deep chord with me. Although my grandmother had always supported me, she had never previously taken such a strong stand in public. As I said, "Thank you, Grandma," my eyes started to fill up with tears, but I was able to control them. "So, what shall we do about this?" Once more, Wayne picked up the bill. Everyone should legally cover the cost of their own orders. But in all honesty, with a sudden, "I will pay," my grandfather exclaimed. Although he had remained silent up until now, his eyes were filled with resolve. "But there is a condition." He glanced at Madison, Kevin, and my parents. "You all need to express regret to Lauren and beg for her pardon. If not, Lauren will receive the full fortune, and you will not be included in my will." A whisper swept over the table. "Dad, you're joking, right?" "My dad said." My grandfather responded sharply, "I'm not joking, Edward. Your actions have let me down for quite some time. The final straw is tonight." Reluctantly, Kevin turned toward me after blushing. "Lauren, I'm sorry." There was no sincerity in his statements. Madison and my parents also formally apologized. My granddad inquired, "Is that satisfactory?" I glanced at Wayne and gave him a little nod. "Yes, this resolves it," asserted Wayne. "However, it is up to Lauren to decide how she wants to handle her relationship with her family in the future." "Of course," responded my granddad. After pulling a card from his wallet, he gave it to the waiter. I grabbed Wayne's arm and got to my feet. "Let's go," I whispered softly. I went up to my grandparents and gave them a gentle embrace before I left the table. "Grandma, thank you." "Grandpa," I muttered. "You are the only true family I have," she stated. "Call any time," as she held my hand. "You're not alone." We walked out of the eatery. The chilly nighttime air of New York rushed over my face as we went outside. It seemed to be the start of something fresh. We stood on the balcony of Wayne's opulent apartment and gazed down over the nightlife of Manhattan. Stars twinkled in the city lights. "I'm really sorry to have involved you in this," I said. "I didn't expect things to turn out like this tonight." Wayne gave a soft smile. "Lauren, I would do anything for you. Furthermore, their actions were unquestionably wrong." "But you couldn't actually have sued them, could you?" I inquired. In his own words, "To be honest, it would have been difficult." But they didn't need to know that. He gave a wink. After we had finished laughing, I inhaled deeply. Wayne caressed my face and said, "Lauren, you are an amazing woman. Compassionate, smart, and talented. If they are unable to recognize it, it is their loss." My eyes were filled with tears. "Yes, Wayne. Of course." He put the ring on my finger and gave me a hug. The hope of a fresh start permeated our kiss. My phone rang late that evening. It was my grandmother's message. "Your bravery makes me proud. It's fantastic that you've discovered how to value and safeguard yourself. I cherish you. Wayne is also a decent dude." I answered with a smile, "Grandma, thank you. Without your help, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I cherish you." I noticed a new day and a fresh start as the first rays of dawn appeared in the sky outside the window. I had spent a lot of time trying to win my family's favor, but I had finally learned to value and appreciate who I was. The hardest decisions are sometimes the most important ones. Although it had been difficult, separating from my family was the first step toward healing and self-respect. Wayne was sleeping well next to me, which made me grin. We would create a new family together, one founded on respect, love, and comprehension. An unforeseen circumstance emerged the next morning. An unidentified number called me. "Is this Lauren Collins?" The voice of a young lady inquired. "This is the New York Daily's Sandra Brown. Could you remark on what happened in Grand Plaza last night?" Confusion gripped me as I questioned, "What incident?" "A video capturing your family insulting you has gone viral on social media," she said. "It's currently trending." I was still. With haste, Wayne pulled out his smartphone and began looking. He pointed at the television and remarked, "Ah, this to me." A visitor at the adjacent table surreptitiously recorded the video, which showed Kevin calling me slave while the whole family laughed. It then showed my grandfather settling the money when I called my lawyer Wayne. Everything was caught in striking detail. I had run out of things to say. "It has already been viewed over 1 million times," Wayne said underneath his breath. "The comments are overwhelmingly supportive of you." The situation worsened throughout the course of the next days. Kevin's social media accounts were inundated with scathing remarks once his place of employment was discovered. Madison's blog about fashion was called hypocritical. In front of my parents' house, paparazzi showed up to follow their everyday whereabouts. Newspapers in the area compared my family's harsh actions with my success story. How a genius entrepreneur was alienated by her family was a widely circulated article. I turned down every interview request. I only wanted to protect my own honor, not bring them into public shame. But the video had a surprising impact. I started receiving messages from young ladies who said they had gone through similar experiences. They characterized my acts as powerful and empowering. Wayne and I were married in a modest ceremony a year later. It was attended by intimate friends in a lovely area in Central Park. I didn't invite my parents or siblings, but my grandparents went. With a dazzling grin, my grandma added, "You have truly found happiness." "Yes, Grandma," was my response. "I've learned to value myself, and I've learned that true family isn't just about blood relations." I promised to give our new family the affection and support I had so desperately needed as a youngster. My grandma called me a year into our marriage to tell me about the circumstances involving my former family. She informed me, "Kevin has gone bankrupt. All of his high-risk investments failed after that social media episode, and he resigned his job since it was hard for him to continue there. He is currently residing in a hotel after his sports vehicle was repossessed." I wasn't shocked. Kevin had never been able to control his impulses and had never had foresight. He had demanded my money in order to fund his extravagant lifestyle. Brian and Madison are no longer together. Since the event, they have been arguing all the time. She and the kids have returned to your parents' home. "And what about Mom and Dad?" I inquired further. "They're struggling." My grandma picked her words well. "Your father was compelled to retire early. They don't appear to be handling Madison and the grandkids there well. And they don't have enough money saved." Quietly, I nodded. My father had always thought that his career was safe and that he had little money saved up for the future. Sometimes I think about my former family. They make me feel lonely and a little depressed, but I don't hate them. Even if the scars from the past might never completely go away, they have strengthened me. They taught me to never undervalue myself and to think of myself as worthwhile. I'm 27 years old, and my name is Nancy. It was like living in the shadow of a supernova while I was growing up with my elder sister Madeline, who is now 30. Her flawless golden hair, which caught the sunshine perfectly, made her literally the golden child. From the beginning, my parents made it apparent that Madeline was unique. I was only present. At supper, Mom would say that Madeline had won first place in the talent contest once more, smiling as if she had done the dance herself. Dad would put the trophy on the mantel with all the others, and he would beg to see it right away. Dad nodded absently when I told him that my scientific project had received honorable mention. "Nancy, that's lovely. Will you pass the potatoes?" I wasn't blind. It was evident to me that Madeline has innate skills that I did not. I had to put in twice as much effort for half the recognition, yet she picked up new talents with ease. The worst part, though, was when I genuinely wanted to try something different. "Mom, the community center is hosting a coding camp." When I was 14 years old, I stated one morning, "It's only $50 for the entire summer." She was going through my page and pictures and hardly looked up. "Nancy, we don't now have the funds for that. Perhaps next year." Madeline said she wanted to learn Spanish in addition to French and German 2 weeks later. Mom put her hands together and said, "That's a great idea." Being trilingual will look amazing on your college applications. That afternoon, the check was written. This wasn't an isolated incident. Rather, it was the norm during my early years. I got her hand-me-downs, while Madeline got the new clothing. Because she required room for all of her awards, she was given the larger bedroom. She received the recognition, the accolades, and the chances, while I discovered other ways to contribute. The most severe setback occurred in my sophomore year of high school. 3 states away, Madeline had recently received an acceptance to Westfield College, a prominent private institution. "We have some news," Dad said one evening during supper. "We've sold the lake house." The lake house was the one location where I could spend entire weekends just relaxing and feeling really pleased. My first fish was caught there. I learned to swim, and I wrote stories on the pier as my feet hung in the refreshing water. But why? With an uncomfortably low voice, I asked. Mom answered, "Mine's tuition, of course," as if I were purposefully being naive. "One of the best schools in the nation is Westfield." For her, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Dad stopped by my room later that evening. I briefly believed that he may genuinely recognize my emotions. He sat on the side of my bed and whispered, "Nancy, I need you to comprehend something. After this, we won't have much money left. You must be realistic about your alternatives when it comes time for you to attend college." That was it. Instead of "I'm sorry we sold your favorite place," rather, "We'll make it up to you somehow." Just a heads up that when it was my turn, I shouldn't anticipate the same treatment. He was correct. The talk was short when my college admission letters arrived 3 years later. "We can afford state," Mom replied, gesturing to the brochure for the nearby college. "Yes, you may major in a useful subject. Finance will provide you with steady work." I swallowed my hopes of studying journalism at universities I knew better than to apply to and nodded. I would at least receive a degree. At least they had something to pay for. College turn became my battleground. At State, I lost myself in textbooks as Madeline sent countless photos of beauty pageants and sorority parties at Westfield. I was adamant about succeeding in finance even if it wasn't my dream. My sister's notifications on my phone served as a constant reminder of our divergent trajectories. The dean's cocktail party invitation was extended to only one missed spring assignment. My folks would give me a call only to brag about her most recent accomplishments. I hardly ever talked to them about my time in college. What was the purpose? "That's nice," Dad replied when I noted that I had made the dean's list 3 consecutive semesters. He then asked me whether I had seen mine's most recent Instagram photo, in which she was posing with a small celebrity who had been to campus. I thus stopped sharing. I put all of my energy into creating my future instead. Madeline was taking home crowns, but I was taking home something more valuable: professorial recommendations. My financial analysis study especially pleased Professor Martinez. "Nancy, this is graduate-level work," she informed me one day after class. "Have you considered applying for the summer internship program at Blackwell Financial?" One of the state's most prominent financial institutions was Blackwell Financial. It meant something to get your foot in that door. "I don't think I'd have a chance," I answered plainly. "You very certainly would if I and Professor Dawkins gave you advice. Consider it." I didn't just consider it. I worked through the night to polish my cover letter and resume since I was so focused on my application. I almost passed out when I received the email of admission. I was genuinely thrilled to share my news when I called home. "You know what, Mom? I was hired for the internship at Blackwell." There were only 5 kids chosen from the entire state. "It's good, honey." "Oh, did you notice Maddie's most recent post? The youngster from the swimming squad that she is seeing has the potential to compete in the Olympics." Suddenly, my accomplishment vanished into thin air. I put in more effort than I had ever done throughout the summer of my junior year. The sight of Blackwell Financial, with its steel and glass and its purposeful movement, was terrifying. Despite being at the bottom of the food chain as an intern, I handled every copy and coffee run assignment as if it were a vital mission. Collins. One day, the head of the division, Mr. Reeves, called out, "These projections you included with the Davidson file, did you do these?" My heart stopped beating. Although it wasn't formally part of my homework, I had taken the initiative to complete a brief analysis. "Yes, sir. I thought it could be useful after noticing certain trends in their quarterly reports. Come to my office tomorrow morning, 8 sharp." That night, I was so sure I had gone too far that I hardly slept. Mr. Reeves was looking over my work as I walked into his office, sweating in my palms. He replied, "This is impressive for an intern," without raising his gaze. "After you graduate, we have an entry-level employment available. Please submit an application." I was so excited that I could hardly control myself. I contacted my parents once again when I got home at night in the hopes that this news, a job offer from Blackwell Financial before I had even begun my senior year, would finally sink in. This time, Dad responded, "That's excellent, Nancy. Have you heard from your mother?" Maddie resigned from her position with Mark and Associates. She said that they didn't value her abilities. Later that month, Madeleine gave more details about her leaving over a family meal. "They expected me to just sit there doing paperwork all day," she grumbled as she twirled noodles around her fork. "I'm too driven for that setting." My abilities went unnoticed by management. Not a single advancement in 2 years. I held my tongue as I considered how promotions in the corporate world really operated, how you had to establish yourself, how you had to earn your way up, and how charm and beauty only got you so far. However, I remained silent. What was the purpose? I immediately accepted the position with Blackwell Financial after graduating. Even though my initial pay wasn't great, I was nevertheless able to rent a modest apartment 10 minutes from the office. The location was crucial. Every day, I aspired to be the first person in and the last one out. My small flat was reduced to a place to sleep. My workstation at Blackwell, where I volunteered for every challenging project that came through our division, was my true home. I made sure my hand was the first in the air when senior analysts were searching for someone to handle challenging customers or difficult data sets. Collins. One afternoon, perhaps 6 months into my employment, Mr. Reeves stated, "I need someone to manage the acquisition of Westmore. It's a mess. Before the end of the quarter, we must arrange their disorderly books." Westmore Industries was a manufacturing business that had seen decades of financial turmoil and antiquated systems. It was a horrible project, as everyone knew. "I'll do it," I responded right away. I essentially lived at the workplace for 3 months. I occasionally slept on the couch in the break room, kept a change of clothing in my desk drawer, and ordered takeout. I sifted through decades' worth of paper records, developed new tracking methods, and constructed spreadsheets. I slowly and carefully worked my way through Westmore's financial problems. I submitted my results to the executive team when the final report was due. As I clicked through my presentation, my hand trembled a little, but my voice stayed calm. In addition to identifying the issues, I had also discovered opportunities hidden inside Westmore's complex narratives. Jennifer Blackwell, the CEO's daughter and head of acquisitions, herself remarked, "This is amazing work. You've saved us millions and turned what looked like a liability into an asset." I received a promotion to senior analyst 2 weeks later. I was the youngest individual in the company's history to occupy the position at the age of 25. I immersed myself in my job even more over the following 2 years. At Blackwell, I developed a reputation for being able to solve any financial conundrum by taking on larger clientele and more challenging projects. I made business trips, had meetings with clients abroad, and gradually ascended the corporate ranks. Finally, it happened at the age of 27. On a Tuesday morning, Jennifer Blackwell summoned me to her office. "Nancy," she stated, "we're reorganizing the asset management department. We need someone to take over as department head as Richard is resigning." I was gasping for air as I gazed at her. "I agree with the board. You are the ideal candidate for the position. Despite being the youngest department head in the history of the organization, your performance history speaks for itself." In an instant, I rose to the position of department head at one of the nation's most prominent financial institutions. I had a staff of 20 people working for me, a secretary, and my own office. It was all I had hoped for. I felt it was time for a genuine celebration after a week of getting used to my new position. I made reservations for a private room at Lame Zone, the city's most exclusive dining establishment, and was ready to welcome friends, family, and coworkers to celebrate my accomplishment. I eventually made the call while staring out over the city skyline from my new corner office. "Mom, it's Nancy." "Oh, hello, dear. I was going to make a call. Maddie is submitting an application for a new job at her employer." I inhaled deeply. "I'd like to invite you and Dad to a dinner party I'm hosting at Limon this Saturday." A pause occurred. "Limon? It's a pricey location. What's the event?" "I received a promotion. The asset management section is now led by me." "Oh, that's pleasant. Is the department large?" I tightened my hold on the phone. "Yes, it is one of the company's main business units. I now have a secretary and an office of my own." "That's excellent. Again, which firm is it? You don't discuss your work often." Now was the time. "Blackwell Financial." The ensuing hush was deafening. "Then Blackwell Financial on Montgomery Street in the Glass Tower." "Yes, that's the one." "You're an executive at Blackwell Financial?" An octave has been added to her voice. "Since when do you work there?" "Since my graduation. It's been 6 years. I've brought it up several times. But that's one of the biggest financial firms in the country." I got a sour kind of enjoyment from hearing the astonishment in her voice. "So, can you and Dad make it Saturday at 7 o'clock?" Yes, of course. We'll be there," she said. Upon ending the call, I gazed out my office window while experiencing an odd spectrum of feelings. They didn't know who I was or what I had done. They hadn't even registered where I worked, let alone my gradual ascent through the ranks, because they have been so preoccupied with Maddie for all these years. My phone rang the very following day. Maddie. For months, we hadn't had a straight conversation. When I answered, she exclaimed, "Nancy," in a piercing voice. "What on earth is happening? Are you really a high-ranking official at Blackwell Financial?" I reclined in my seat. "I'm the head of asset management." "When did you become eligible to oversee a department at Blackwell? That is among the nation's leading financial businesses." Her tone infuriated me. "Since I worked my ass off for 6 years to earn it." She said, "This is unbelievable. You had no right to get promoted to a position like that before me." I almost dropped the phone. "Pardon me? What is the connection between you and my career?" "I've been applying to Blackwell for years, as you are aware. It turns out that my own sister works there, even though they never even called me for an interview. I must have been blocked by you." I genuinely chuckled at how ridiculous the charge was. "Maddie, recruiting in other divisions is not my responsibility. I was unaware that you had applied. You made sure they wouldn't hire me, and you have contacts there. You've always been envious of my appearance and knowledge. You're attempting to retaliate against me. Are you listening to yourself?" My voice was dangerously low as I spoke. "Maddie, it's not all about you. I worked hard, not via connections, to acquire my position. Anyway, I am aware of what you did. Nancy, you're pathetic. Always been." The line died. The bitterness in her voice left me speechless as I sat there. She had the gall to accuse me of sabotage after I had lived in her shadow for years and watched her get everything while I fought for the few remaining bits of attention. I immediately had a fresh perspective on my flat when I strolled through it that evening. It was pleasant yet unremarkable. Nothing that accurately represented my role or pay. I continued to live like the invisible daughter who didn't deserve beautiful things since I was so preoccupied with my job that I had ignored my personal life. I gave a real estate agent a call that weekend. It was time for me to live up to the expectations of my role as head of asset management at Blackwell Financial. I gave my parents another call a week later. "Mom, are you and Dad coming to my party on Saturday?" She spoke in a chilly tone. We are unable to attend. Maddie would find it too painful. Bewildered, I blinked. What does Maddie have to do with my promotion party? She informed us about your discussion. Nancy, how could you have done that to your sister? Preventing her from applying to your company? Following all of your life's benefits. The benefits I'd enjoyed? Did she mean it? Maddie was never blocked from anything by me. Merely, I never blocked Maddie from anything, I stated. If she can't get hired at Blackwell, maybe she should look at her qualifications instead of blaming me. How dare you? Mom let out a gasp. I always knew you were envious of her, but I never imagined you would go to such lengths. We're not going to your party. Please don't send us another invitation. The line died. As I stood there with my phone in hand, I experienced an odd feeling of peace. That was the way it would be. They would still find a way to paint me as the villain and Maddie as the victim after I accomplished something genuinely remarkable. All right. I was done attempting to win a rigged game if that's how they wanted to play it. When I made my last party plans, I made sure to reserve 3 seats at the main table, which would be noticeably empty. I meticulously positioned the name cards I made for Maddie Collins, Helen Collins, and Robert Collins at the table. Dinner arrived on the evening of my celebration. With champagne glasses in hand, 25 of my best friends and coworkers gathered to congratulate me on my accomplishment. 3 vacant seats with name cards sat like ghosts at the main table. Jennifer Blackwell came up to me and looked at the vacant chairs. Family running late? I sipped my champagne. They're not coming. Her eyebrow went up, but she didn't raise it. She clinked her glass with mine instead. Their demise. Nancy, it's a pleasure to celebrate with you. Your accomplishments are astounding. As the meal went on, a number of individuals inquired about the vacant seats. That's where my parents and sister would be sitting if they'd chosen to come, was my truthful response each time. I sat at the head of the table, right close to those vacant chairs, when it came time for remarks. I expressed my gratitude to my friends, mentors, and team for their support. I shared my vision for the department's future as well as the path that led me here. I made no mention of my relatives. I requested that the restaurant's photographer capture the full celebration after the speech, including many images of me standing next to the 3 vacant chairs with their name cards prominently displayed. I posted the pictures on social media later that evening, when I was by myself in my flat, and everyone else had gone home. I selected a really moving picture of myself grinning while holding champagne in my luxury outfit, with 3 vacant chairs visible next to me. Robert, Helen, and Maddie Collins' name cards were positioned precisely in the middle of the picture. Tonight, surrounded by the people who genuinely support my success, I celebrated becoming the youngest department head in Blackwell Financial's history. My caption said, "My heart is full, yet some seats are still vacant." I took a close look at the post before clicking share. The reaction was instantaneous. Friends, coworkers, distant family members, and high school acquaintances showered the page with likes, comments, and notes. Nancy, congratulations. What a feat. Where did your folks go? Is everything all right? Is your sister sick? I hope everything in your family is doing well. None of these questions received a response from me. I simply left them hanging there, unanswered, in plain sight of Madeline and my parents. My phone rang in less than 24 hours. My father's voice was tense with rage. "Nancy, remove that post right away. All day long, your mother has been taking calls from family members inquiring as to why we missed your meal. We've been thoroughly embarrassed by you." I made a hollow, brief chuckle. You were humiliated. That's intriguing. Nancy, this isn't humorous. People are inquiring as to whether Madeline is all that matters to us. You've ruined our reputation. Calmly, I didn't make you look like anything, I answered. I just shared pictures from my party. Mom says it would be hurtful to Madeline's feelings, so you decided not to come. I'm only recording the events. That's not fair, and you know it. He raised his voice. You've turned this into a spectacle to get back at us. Is Mom there? I ignored his allegation and asked. After a little rustling, My mother's voice could be heard over the phone. How could you harm us, Nancy? This is not how I raised you. Mom, have you? Because, as far as I can tell, you brought me up to think Madeline was more important than me. You brought me up to take meager attention while she received all of it. I was brought up to be invisible by you. That is untrue. We've taken care of everything. Your college tuition was covered by us. You paid for the cheapest option after spending everything on Madeline's private education. You gave me hand-me-downs while she got new clothes. I protested. Two, for her education, you had to sell my favorite spot on earth. I've only ever received residuals from you, or what was left over after Madeline had her part. Mom said icily, "You've always been so envious of your sister, so selfish, always wanting what she had." No, Mother. For once, I wanted you to feel as proud of me as you did of her. But even now, whenever I accomplish anything objectively remarkable, you manage to turn it into a story about her, painting me as the bad guy and her as the victim. I don't think we have anything more to say to each other if that's how you feel, Mom remarked in a cold tone. I suppose we don't. Nancy, don't call us again. You've already made up your mind. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling oddly at ease as the connection went silent. Naturally, it was painful, but there was also a feeling of relief. The act was over. No longer wishing they would see me, no more looking for unattainable validation. The longest and most freeing year of my life came to an end. I pushed myself into my new position, making the asset management division the most lucrative department at Blackwell. I was respected by my team, and the board noticed. The rapid growth of my career continues. I at last began living for myself in my personal life. I purchased a gorgeous penthouse apartment with 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a balcony overlooking the bay in the most prestigious building in the city. I decorated it with unique artwork, specially made furniture, and a grand piano that I was learning to play. Everything I had always desired, but never felt I deserved. I periodically learned about Madeline via family gatherings and common connections. At last, she was promoted to a mid-level management role at her firm. As though she had been appointed CEO, our parents apparently threw her a lavish party and invited everyone they knew. When I heard this, I grinned, not because I was angry, but because it just stopped hurting. My cousin Ellie sent me a text one evening when I was enjoying a glass of wine on my balcony and watching the sunset. "Did you see the pictures from Maddie's promotion party? Your folks went all out. Take a look at her Instagram." Before I opened the app, I paused. I hadn't seen my family's social media accounts in months, but I couldn't help but be curious. Numerous pictures of an extravagant celebration were there. Madeline wearing a pricey gown, my parents grinning next to her, a specially made cake, champagne, and more ornate floral arrangements than those at my own reception. It said, "So blessed to have parents who support my every success." I started looking through pictures I had taken of my apartment earlier that day, including the large living room with its designer furniture and modern art, the gourmet kitchen where I was learning how to cook, and the master bedroom with its king-sized bed and walk-in closet filled with clothes I had purchased for myself. After choosing the finest pictures, I started posting them on my Instagram. I wrote the caption slowly, "Home, sweet home." I gave myself a new penthouse as a reward for all of my effort and tenacity. You have to be your own best advocate sometimes. Feeling calm rather than vindictive, I pressed share and put my phone down. Getting even with them was no longer the goal. It was about honoring my life, my accomplishments, and myself. I was aware that another housewarming celebration will be held, this time without my family. There would be more pictures and more obvious omissions. The cycle would go on. I would begin organizing my housewarming celebration tomorrow. I would extend an invitation to friends, coworkers, and neighbors who truly cared about my achievement. Even so, I would place those 3 vacant chairs with their name cards as a reminder to myself of my progress, rather than as a declaration or a kind of discipline. I was aware that they wouldn't show up, but it made no difference.